All right, guys, we got a good one today. It's called How Modern Physics Kills the Globe. So we're going to see if that's true or not. We're going to take a deep dive into the claim that the Earth is accelerating upwards. We're going to see where it originated from. We're going to see who supports it, who's against it, what kind of impact it has on either model. Okay, let's see who makes this claim in the first place. Okay, because most flat earthers and anti-flat earthers claim that the ground is not rising up, but it's actually modern physicists who claim the ground is rising up. And if accelerometers could talk, they would too claim the ground is accelerating up. But let me give you some receipts for that.
The equivalence principle tells us that a uniform gravitational field is actually just an accelerating frame of reference.
In other words, gravitational fields do not exist. So he ain't saying that it's like an accelerating frame of reference. He's saying that it is just an accelerating frame of reference. That's the equivalence principle.
The equivalence principle tells us that a uniform gravitational field is actually just an accelerating frame of reference. You and the ground beneath you are literally rushing up to meet the apple.
I want to ask you, are you watching this video in an inertial frame of reference?
Another way to ask that is, are you watching this video in a non-moving frame of reference?
I want to ask you, are you watching this video in an inertial frame of reference? Well, do you feel weightless? No. So you are not an inertial observer. Your situation is exactly the same as someone accelerating on a rocket ship in deep space. And let me be clear, I don't mean that being at rest in a gravitational field is like accelerating in a rocket. I mean it is the exact same thing. You are accelerating and there is no gravitational field. Gravitational fields do not exist.
So the thing that Einstein noticed, which is not explained in any way satisfactorily in Newton's theory, is that all things fall at the same rate. Newton doesn't explain it, really. It's rather convoluted. There's no real explanation of that. But in Einstein's theory, the explanation is that they're not falling. It is the ground that is accelerating up. It is the ground that is accelerating up.
You and the ground beneath you are literally rushing up to meet the apple. Are literally...
So I repeat that multiple times in slow motion to put emphasis, because McToon and company try to weasel their way out of the fact that the equivalence principle states that the ground accelerates upward. Anyway, I could go on and on for days, but modern mainstream physics does claim that the ground's accelerating up. Literally. They all even say literally.
In Einsteinian relativity, it's literally the ground rising up to meet the apple. Do you agree with that?
No.
What part of that did you disagree with?
Yeah, the ground rushing up part.
Well, no, the Earth can't be moving upwards.
So these anti-flat earthers, like McToon and Bob the Science Guy, say that the ground's not rising up, but the physicists say that it is. So I wonder why that is. I'm assuming it's because they know that couldn't possibly work on a globe, because Bob said that the ground can't be rising up, because he's so set on the Earth being a globe. I guess he realizes that if the ground was rising up, then the Earth ain't a globe. So I can't think of anything else to make them go against the science they act like they defend, but don't. But that alone made me take a deep dive into this. I'm like, why are they going against the science that they act like they're defending? So no matter which side of this debate you're on, you've probably heard this before. No, we don't claim the Earth's accelerating up. That's the Flat Earth Society. Well, I wanted to know where that came from, and was it even true? So I had to go back almost 10 years to the origin and found out that it was none other than McToon who started that bullshit. And then I looked it up. It wasn't the Flat Earth Society claiming the Earth was rising up. They were highlighting that physics and Einstein claimed the Earth is rising up. They didn't make any definitive claims. They were pointing out that that's mainstream science. And that's what the devices and instrumentation shows, that we're accelerating upwards. So McToon didn't want to argue against it. And so he started a rumor, and people like Mark Sargent, nothing against him, but he started repeating it. And other flat earthers started repeating it, where it just became a non-argument. And it's quite possibly the strongest argument against the globe. Or why else would they be going against mainstream physics? So for all these years, we've been letting them off the hook. The fact that they go against their own model and they deny science because of some bullshit that got started 10 years ago. It's ridiculous. From a strategical point of view, that's actually genius. They've been let off the hook completely of having to out loud go against mainstream physics. It's ridiculous. And dude, all that so we didn't sound stupid. Like, no, nobody would ever believe the ground's rushing up. When the whole time that was a lie. The Flat Earth Society didn't say the ground's rising up. Like I said, they just was stating modern physics. That's why I don't need to claim the ground's rising up. I just need to point out to them that that's their science. And it's just amazing that there's so many flat earthers. When I bring this up, they're saying the ground don't rise up, Ryan. For one, you don't know that. And neither do I. For two, who gives a shit if it's rising up? Let's hold them accountable for this shit. The point is that they sound ridiculous because there's no good explanation against it. The only thing they got is they have to say that it's space-time curvature. You can't fucking bend space. You can make a coordinate system of that space and bend the coordinate system, but you can't bend space. That's goddamn ridiculous. So flat earthers, it's okay to point out that the instrumentation reads an upwards acceleration and that mainstream physics claims it. We don't have to make the claim to point it out and listen to their weaselly, stupid explanations. And let's be honest, who here has heard somebody new into this subject's first question be, does the earth rise up? Or do we think the earth rises up? Nobody. I've never, ever heard somebody new to this inquire about that. And if I'm being honest, if you just point out that it's mainstream physics and Einstein that claim that it's the earth rising up, that is awesome evidence against the globe. And we've let them off the hook. This is just baffling to me. And what's equally baffling is that when I bring this up to my comrades, they start arguing with me like I'm arguing that the ground is literally rising up. It's like, oh my God. And I even tell them beforehand, I'm not arguing the ground's rising up. And by the time I start stating my case, they're not, the ground ain't rising up, right? I'm like, oh my God, this is just ridiculous. So that's another reason I had to take a step back. And I got into a couple arguments with flat earthers saying that it's just a calibration. So look on screen. If I calibrate the accelerometer to 0 while stationary on the ground, will it work? If you keep the device flat, then it'll work basically. But if 1G is 0, then it won't know which direction it's going. It's simple. So once you leave 2 dimensions, look, if you tilt or rotate the device, it will not work. This is where the calibration breaks. And look at their bullshit explanation. The problem is gravity is a constant force pulling down 1G. No, that would be better off by saying that gravity is a constant upward acceleration at 1G. Because that's what the drone thinks that's happening. It thinks it's accelerating up at 9.8 meters per second. So they just bounce back and forth with their bullshit. But the fact of the matter is, you can't tell it's at 0 when it's moving at 9.8 meters per second squared, because now if it goes at an angle at 9.8 meters per second squared, it's got to do that just to get back to 0. So how's it going to know which way it's going? Just think about it for a minute. If I'm not explaining it good, it's not going to have direction if you calibrate it at 0 while it's stationary on the ground. And this is page 2 to the question, does modern physics claim that the apple is falling to the ground? It says, you on the ground, you are not staying still. The earth is constantly pushing you upwards. Imagine being in an elevator that is accelerating upward very fast. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, you see how they bounce back and forth between their stories so they don't sound like fools. But thank you for watching.